Today we have Jordan Peterson, the man who calmly dismantles feminism. Jordan Peterson is one of my favorite people. He's inspired me to become a better person, and he's just all around good for young men. His book, 12 Rules of Life, was amazing. I recommend that book to any young man out there. One of my favorite quotes from that book is, "Don't compare yourself to others, compare yourself to who you were yesterday." That quote is amazing. I love that quote, and it's awesome. The person I was yesterday, I want to be better than that. Anywho, let's jump into the video and see what Jordan has to say.
One of our guests of the day, the other one today, is a man you may recognise, or maybe you don't. Jordan Peterson has achieved that rare feat, becoming a global superstar academic.
Yep.
Bill C-16 made it an offence to refuse to call someone by their chosen gender pronoun. Jordan Peterson argued that this would infringe free speech, while some supporters of the bill said he was advocating prejudice. From there, his YouTube star took off, and he has now over 1 million subscribers. And his videos, where he talks everything from identity politics, which we've touched on, to the Bible, to Disney movies, have been viewed over 150 million times. Gosh, that's about the same number of viewers we have on this programme. Last year, he supported ex-Google employee James Damore, who had been fired for suggesting men and women have different interests due to biological differences. And his latest book, 12 Rules for Life, has taken him on a global tour promoting his ideas. And just this week, he sold out the 1,000-seater Emmanuel Centre around the corner here in Westminster. So, Jordan, you've done endless interviews. You've been publicising your book, and they've generated plenty of heated debate.
No, I actually sold out the Apollo. It had 5,000 seats.
All right, stop boasting.
My man!
Do you think, though, because of the heat that has been generated, that your views have been misrepresented at times?
Oh, definitely, but that's, that's part and parcel of the process. I did take a very forceful stance, let's say, against some of the excesses of the radical left-wingers, and it's in their best interest to paint me as somehow a figure of the extreme right, because then I don't have to be contended with. But, I mean, it's easy for people's views to be oversimplified in a very large public debate.
My man is so meticulous on his words. I wish I could sound this smart. I wish I could actually be vocabularism very good. I wish I could speak this well. He speaks so meticulously because everything he says, he knows it's going to be scrutinized by his opposing people that don't like him, the people that think he's a radical right-wing person. He's got to be very meticulously and think about every single word he says, because they're going to tear him apart if he says anything wrong or to offend them even more than they're already offended.
In terms of some of the issues, I mean, you say you've been painted as an extreme right-winger.
No, some people have tried that. Not very successfully, but they've tried it.
And you came to prominence.
They've tried to cancel him so many times. They call him a right-wing Nazi sometimes. And all this man wants to do is make your life better. He's an advocate for young men, and he wants men to make their beds, get up, be a man, and be better than you were yesterday. Sorry, I'm a little... I like Jordan.
In part over your opposition to this law that we just talked about in Canada, proposing the use of preferred pronouns for transgender people. Just for clarity...
Mandating them.
Yeah.
Right.
Saying that you should do it.
No, that you had to do it.
Right, you had to do it by law. But just for clarity, do you think
he doesn't want it to be a
trans
law
woman is a real woman?
I don't really like the way those questions are formulated. I don't know what that means. What do you mean a real woman?
Well, I'm asking you, in your mind, it depends what you think a real woman is, but do you think a trans woman is a woman?
No.
Why not?
Because I think that women are capable, generally speaking, of having babies, and they have female genitalia, and they have an XX chromosome, and I think the biological markers are relevant.
This video is a little older, and if that was said outside today or on Twitter, they'd have a field day after him. Maybe that's why they hated him so much. But man, if you say anything near like that, it's just bad, especially if you're outside in like Los Angeles or Seattle or New York, one of the bigger cities.
It doesn't necessarily mean that I don't think that people should be treated with respect and dignity if they happen not to fit easily into a gender category. That's a different issue.
Right.
But it's a matter of definition. And I actually think it's a foolish argument in some sense, because what do you mean by real?
Well, I mean, you've just clarified that, though. You don't think that a trans woman is a woman. And do you think that that is what is behind or explains your opposition to this idea of a law mandating you to use a preferred pronoun, is because you don't actually believe that that's the truth, that a trans woman is a woman and therefore you can't use that pronoun?
No, that's not my argument at
Really?
all. Yeah, really. My argument is that the government shouldn't compel voluntary speech.
No, but I know what your argument is.
He's trying to tell you his argument. Calm down, young lady, and let him say his argument. Don't tell him what his argument is when he can tell it to your face right now.
No, but
Made
that's
it very
really
clearly.
it. But that's exactly it. There's
but the
no
motivation
There's
behind
no motivation behind it.
But you don't believe
I wouldn't put everything on my online in my life to take the stance I did unless I had thought that through very deeply. And I've thought it through very deeply. There aren't hidden motivations that have to do with some arbitrary prejudice against trans people.
Okay.
It's pure and simply
Why does everybody
this.
think there's a hidden motivation for everything?
There's never been a time in English common law history where the government compelled speech, and the Canadian government dared to do that. And that was unacceptable. And they masked it with this show of compassion for the oppressed, and I don't buy it.
Right, but you would, as I think you said, at an individual level, if somebody asked you to use a particular pronoun, you would do so.
Well, I have.
You have? Right,
Yes.
fine.
Okay.
Yes.
Let's talk about feminism. Are you a feminist?
No, not as it's currently defined, certainly not.
No.
Oh, wow.
Well, in any other definition?
Well, I think that anybody who doesn't think that the competitive landscape should be opened up for equality of opportunity is not thinking.
I think the current definition of feminist is 10 times different or far more extreme than it was 10 to 15 years ago. It's a different definition of feminism, 100%.
And so everyone's interests are better served if people have as equal access to opportunity to display their talents and to manifest their talents in the world as possible. So in that sense, certainly. But feminism now, and this is why it's so deeply unpopular, a very small minority of women in the UK identify as feminists. And the reason for that is it's primarily become an ideological weapon. And it's an ideology that I detest, actually.
Why can't I speak like this? Ideological weapons and stuff like that. I want to be able to speak with the vocabulary Jordan has. What do I have to do? Read a book? I've read a book before. I've read Harry Potter. I didn't learn this vocabulary. Sorry for yelling.
The ideology that it's associated with, collectivist ideology.
Right. I mean, okay, and that's your view about feminism. Aisha, are you a feminist?
Oh, absolutely. I'm
hello,
a very
Aisha.
proud
Over there
feminist.
lurking.
And when I was a special advisor in government, I worked on women and equality issues, and I'm very proud, actually, of a piece of legislation I got in the statute book with my former boss, Harriet Harman, the Equality Act, which strengthened our anti-discrimination laws. And I fought very hard to get more women into public life, into the Labour Party. And I'm very, very proud of being a feminist, hence my pink dress.
Oh, well, all right.
Apparently pink means feminism nowadays. I thought men were real men if they wore pink. Come on, you can't have it both ways.
Obviously reverting to type then.
Absolutely,
the pink dress.
well.
You would like men to regain or reclaim their strength physically, mentally and morally. Is that broadly correct?
Be a
I would say
man.
morally, fundamentally, but I think the other things go along with that.
Right, and if that
But it isn't men precisely who I'm speaking to. It's people. I'm a clinical psychologist. I'm actually interested in individuals, and I'm interested in their fortification against tragedy. You know, every time I do an interview, the interview is always political. It's always political.
Well, the clue is in the title of this programme. We are the Daily Politics.
No, fair enough. No, fair enough. And I'm not casting aspersions at this programme, but the fundamental news that's important about what I'm doing isn't the political element. And the people who talk to me don't talk politically. They say they've watched my lectures.
But part
and
of it is that I think for a lot of people, the kind of personal does become the political.
Or the political becomes the personal.
Yeah, and I think in terms of
but in this situation, a lot of people are wrong, because primarily what's happening is people are watching my lectures, and as a consequence, their lives are improving dramatically.
Oh, I'm sure they are. I'm sure people are have had a huge conversion after, and they're much happier once they've been.
It's not a conversion.
But
It's
what I would like to do is kind of almost, I think at the
Does it seem like this girl is talking over him? I get it. You're trying to get your point across, but isn't he your guest? Or are you the guest? I'm not sure who the guest is, but you keep talking over your guest, and he's trying to convey his point, and you're trying to get your point across, because I don't know. I don't know who the guest is here.
moment, the discussion about feminism is very divisive, and sometimes it can sort of be like, okay, men have to lose and women have to gain. Actually, everybody has a lot to gain by greater equality. Now, whether you get the equality of outcome that you want, I think only time will tell. But certainly, equality of opportunity is very important. And actually, a lot of men would benefit from that. So I think a lot of men are having a lot of crises at the moment in terms of mental health, suicide issues, their own sense of identity. Because I think some of the stereotypes put on men are quite limiting for them as well. I think they make men quite unhappy as well.
The devil's in the details with regards to equality, because I'm an advocate of equality of opportunity. But
and
I think
outcomes.
The devil's in the details of the form of inequality. I could never think of saying something so smart.
The outcomes, that's an appalling doctrine.
Why? All right. Well,
because you have to produce an unbelievably potent bureaucracy to make the ever greater and ever finer distinctions that are necessary to enforce equality of outcome. How many group differences are you going to equalize across? Is it just gender and sex? How many genders? No, so gender and ethnicity? How many genders? How many ethnicities? How many races?
We'll let Aisha answer.
I think what people are trying to do with this, and certainly as somebody who has sought to sort of do this myself, I think you set yourself ambitions for what you would like to see, and then you try and remove as many of the structural barriers and obstacles. So you try and create that fair crack of the whip and that equality of opportunity to see where you get to with the outcomes.
That's
now,
fine.
We are in very early stages. It's only 100 years since
He's so
women
agreeable
got the
too.
vote
A lot
in
of
this
times.
country. We have had a long-established patriarchal society and set up for a long time in the world in this country. So I think we have a long way to go to see where it plays out. There is no country in the world where we really do have gender equality properly yet in terms of real decision making and real
some of the
power.
Scandinavian countries maybe,
but they're still not quite there. And I think you've spoken a lot about this. There's still a way to go in Scandinavia. Things are not perfect in Scandinavia.
I haven't spoken about that specifically. I've spoken about.
You spoke about the right stuff yesterday. You talked about the Scandinavia.
Well, I've spoken about the fact that, see, one of the things that's happened in the analysis of the differences between men and women is that the social constructionist claim is that the differences are socially constructed, right? Is that it's a consequence of environment that men and women differ. But what the scientific literature indicates is that as cultures become more egalitarian, like they have in Scandinavia, the differences between men and women actually increase rather than decreasing, which is a direct repost to the social constructionist view. So they just deny all that. The biggest differences in the world in interest and temperament are between Scandinavian men and women. It's exactly the opposite of what everyone predicted.
Can I just pick up on one thing you said a little earlier in the interview, which you said it's the moral guidance that you are focused on. You think that is particularly important. How do you square that with the behaviour of perhaps arguably, a prominent alpha male president of the United States, Donald Trump?
It always comes back to Donald Trump. Trump. I think hating Trump is just a personality trait nowadays. It always has to come back to Donald Trump, doesn't it?
Accused of having an affair with a porn star when his wife was pregnant. How does that fit with morally reclaiming?
I would say that was rather clearly immoral.
Right.
Yeah,
but
not to be a target for emulation.
You still would have voted for him over Hillary Clinton as an identity politics. It's just how
none of that was on the table. And I said I might have voted for him on a whim. That's all.
But you also did say you started out feeling quite close to Hillary Clinton. Can I just come on the
very quickly, because we've got to move on.
In a way, I don't care what Trump does in terms of his private life, but what I don't have is him stopping or potentially stopping other women having agency over their reproductive rights and lots of men taking those decisions.
It's all about where the moral outrage lies and what's more morally outrageous in people's eyes. Is it his behaviour or the identity politics for you on the... Anyway, we'll have to discuss this another time.
I love how Jordan Peterson can remain so calm in that type of situation. Emotions run very wild in these type of debates, interviews, or whatever you want to say. And he stayed very calm even when he was interrupted. I think both of them were the actual guests and she was the interviewee. So they both got to try and speak, which is, it's fine. But he's willing to listen to the other side of the argument. And he doesn't like when people say, I know what you mean. You don't know what he means. He can tell you what he means.
Devil's in the details of the form of inequality.
What the hell? I would hate that. I would hate that 100%. It for sure probably gets to him a little bit. Jordan seriously, calmly expressed his values or expressed his side of the argument. As me, I'm kind of on Jordan's side already, so everything he said I agree with, especially the ones with the big words in it.
Ideological weapons.
But that wraps up this video with Jordan Peterson, and how he calmly had an interview with some feminists. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you enjoyed this type of content. Please like, subscribe, comment, do all that good stuff. That's the only way I know you actually like it. And I'll see you guys on the next Con Reacts. Peace!